All right, at this time, in talking about the fourth commandment, honor your father and mother that it may go well with you, that you might have long life on the earth. And what that means, we notice Luther's two thoughts. One, here's what it doesn't mean. We should not, out of fear and love for God, we should not dishonor or anger our parents or others in authority. So that's what we should not do. But we should, right, serve them, obey them, honor them, and give them love and respect. What about this? What about those in authority? Let's say, what if parents are asking us to do things that aren't godly? What if they're asking us to lie? Should we honor those in authority and lie, which would dishonor God? What if we find that there's corruption in government? What if there are some police officers that are abusing their power? What if in the church we find false teaching from a pastor or called worker, or worse things, abuse all around? What are we to do with those in authority over us who are being unfaithful servants to God? Should we become rebellious? Should we fight against them and be violent? What would God have us do? Go ahead and talk about that, discuss a little bit what we should do in regard to authorities over us that are corrupt in some way or entirely. As you think about that, I'm going to read to you from Acts chapter 5, verse 29. Here the Apostle Peter and John the Apostle are standing before a corrupt ruling council of the Jewish people, the ruling council that actually put Jesus to death unjustly. They're threatening Peter and John with imprisonment or even worse if they continue to preach in the name of Jesus, that he lived, died, and rose for us, for the forgiveness of sins. So Peter, he respectfully addresses the Sanhedrin, who's threatening Peter for, what he's doing when he was doing right. Peter says this: we should obey God rather than men. Acts 5:29. So in their direct order, stop preaching in the name of Jesus, Peter says, well, decide for yourself what men should do. Should we obey God or people? We should obey God rather than men. It's his thought, and he was willing to face the consequences. He was willing to be put in prison. He was willing to be beaten. He was willing to be put to death even. And so this is the interesting thing. This is the Christian's approach. We are to rely on God to bring about justice. We should speak up against that which is evil, even if it's from our authorities, just like Peter did. But we're not to fight back. We're not to be violent. For example, if your parents were to suggest, just tell your teacher this, not thinking, and it would be a half-truth or it would be a lie, we would lovingly say to mom and dad, I'm sorry, I can't do that. That's a lie. And God calls us to speak the truth in love. And then if your parents are upset and they send you to your room for doing what's right, you leave it to God for them to truly understand and confess their sin to God. Right? So we have no right ever to be rebellious against the authorities that God established over us. Same thing if we see corruption among the government. Well, within the law of the land, we can hopefully make changes. If anything, we are to speak out against that in love and respect. And we must then be willing to be thrown in jail or to even be executed, to live our lives knowing that we could die for doing what's right and good, just like Jesus. In fact, just like the Apostle Paul and Peter, both who honored and respected corrupt governments, didn't go by with what they were telling him to do if it breaks God's will, and they both died for that. When it comes to the church, we were to speak out against any false teaching. We are to lovingly try to correct any leaders that are wayward. And ultimately, if we get pushed out of the church because of our faithfulness, then so be it. We are following after God's will and his word, just like Peter and John were willing to do with the Sanhedrin, the leaders of the Jewish people, the religious people, when they were wayward. All right. Blessings then, as you talk about the importance of honoring those in authority, even if they're wayward, relying on God to bring about justice and honoring him and being willing to suffer whatever consequences coming for doing good. And in that, at least we have comfort in knowing that we're like Jesus and like the apostles who suffered for doing what was right. God bless.